Good morning. I'm Chris Magnus. I'm the police chief in Richmond, California. Richmond is across the bay from San Francisco. It's a working class city of about 100,000. And we can talk firsthand about the challenges and tragedies associated with gun violence in our community. Last year in Richmond, we had over 472 shots fired. I can be that precise because we utilize an acoustic gun detection system known as ShotSpotter that helps us keep track of this. And we can also tell that many of those shots were fired. They were multiple rounds fired from high-capacity magazines. I wanted to share with you a moment what that sounds like, because we talk a lot about this, but when you live with it and when you experience what it's like to be in a community that has, over the years, been ravaged by gun violence, there is a whole different sense of urgency associated with passing this kind of legislation that can save lives and make such a difference to the dynamics of a community. So what I'd like to share with you is what a high-capacity magazine can do when it's being fired on a city street, a main thoroughfare, at 11 o'clock at night. And again, this is on a main street surrounded by neighborhoods. And this is what it sounds like at Stige and Cutting in the city of Richmond. I live a mile away from that intersection, so I can tell you firsthand this is a quality of life issue, even when someone isn't struck by one of those rounds. Now in Richmond, we confiscate an average of 1.5 firearms a day. Many of these are stolen. Most of them have been obtained illegally, in some cases purchased illegally, and virtually all of them are extremely difficult to trace because of our current gun laws and the challenges our crime labs face in terms of being backlogged. Last year, despite significant improvements in community engagement and a lot of hard work by many, many folks in the community, we had 18 homicides. Again, better news compared to prior years, but still devastating for families and friends of victims and, of course, to the community overall. We also had close to 200 armed robberies and 84 gun assaults. This is unacceptable. We have to make some changes. I mean, the question is asked, do we have a gun problem in our communities? Absolutely, we do. Is there one simple solution or an easy piece of legislation that will solve that entire problem? Of course not. We all recognize that. But will it make a difference to my community and many others if we enact legislation that makes it more difficult to purchase ammunition, to trace firearm ownership, and which enhance the penalties for various gun crimes when guns are used irresponsibly or in the hands of criminals? Absolutely. Now, I know that some critics claim that the difference these steps might make is minimal because of the willingness of many criminals to ignore existing gun laws. Sure, they could be right. But let me say, if it's someone in your neighborhood, a friend or a member of your family that's a victim of one of these crimes, and who then could have been spared as a result of passing some of this legislation, or hopefully all of it, my guess is that you would find these laws more than worthwhile. I would challenge you, sit next to a grieving mother on a curb, as I have on more occasions than I'd like to remember, or get that sickening call in the middle of the night when one of your officers has been hurt or killed as a result of a gun crime, again, something I've experienced, and you gain a whole new impact on how important it is that we try different and new approaches to address this epidemic of gun violence that we are facing throughout our state. This is not just an urban problem, it's a rural problem, and we've seen that just recently with several major crimes involving guns. So I hope we can gain wide support for this. This is not about going against the Second Amendment. This is not about taking guns away from responsible gun owners. This is about addressing an epidemic, a health problem, a catastrophe that faces our communities.
Chief James.
Well said, Chris. My name is Ken James. I'm the Chief of Police of the Emeryville Police Department. I also serve as the California Police Chiefs Association's Firearms Committee Chairman. As an association, we have long held a leadership role in reasonable legislation and regulations on firearms. In 1995, our membership took the bold stance and to go after gun violence, and they issued a position paper. We are currently in the process of updating that paper, but the principles in that paper will not change. We deal with gun violence, and our officers deal with gun violence on a daily basis. As Chief Magnus said, 1.5 guns a day his officers are encountering. When we encounter that gun, that is a high-stress, high-intensity situation for us, and it takes it out of us. It scares us, to say a better way. And reasonable laws, and the laws that are being proposed this year are very reasonable to the regulation of these firearms, and it will help our officers on the street. One issue that always boggles my mind is that the idea that a gun is a defensive weapon. That is a myth. A gun is not a defensive weapon. A gun is an offensive weapon used to intimidate and used to show power. Police officers do not carry a gun as a defensive weapon to defend themselves or their other officers. They carry a gun to be able to do their job in a safe and effective manner and face any oppositions that we may come upon. If it was a defensive measure, why did we lose 55 officers nationwide last year to gun violence? And unfortunately, in just the 2 months of this year so far, we've lost 2 officers to gun violence in the state of California alone. We deal with gun violence on a daily basis. We are asking and have been asking for reasonable regulations, not that are going to impact the legal gun owner. We're asking for reasonable regulations that will help us keep our communities and our officers safe. Thank you.